Welcome back to Lost Legacies.
A Hidden City Book Company production.
I'm Sam.
I'm Matt.
Nice to be here. It's kind of weird. Didn't have an episode last week. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that, in a little bit. But for everybody else, Matt, what have you been up to?
Did I watch? Wow, I don't think I watched anything this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
just kind of relaxed, played some video games. Watched the world on fire, according to the news.
Oh, yeah.
Or yeah, certain news outlets. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I have so many friends in Los Angeles right now. It's really crazy just to see everything that's happening, but then also to see how normal it is as well,
Yeah.
which in itself is kind of terrifying. Um, but yeah, so I've just been stressing out about that. What about you? I heard a little birdie told me you went to the movies.
Well, that little birdie is a traitor. But yes, I did.
Nice.
But to preface, earlier in the weekend, we did watch John Wick Chapter 4.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have
Mm-hmm.
this conversation.
What are you talking about?
Well, please, Sam, share your thoughts on John Wick 4.
I liked it. I
Okay.
thought it was good.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I got.
Did you end up writing your review after all?
No, I still haven't written it. I don't know. I guess like it feels weird. Like I'm having a hard time just like sussing out my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I don't know. Maybe this will be a draft one, where I just say like, "Hey, I thought it was I thought it looked very beautiful. I thought it was very well choreographed. I loved the style. Some of the most jaw-dropping action I've ever seen in my life, and truly an overwhelming experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like clocking in at what, like 3 hours long?
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot to take in, and I don't think I was in the right headspace to really take it all in.
Okay, so now remind me though, did you rewatch the first three before?
No. So we had started like a rewatch
Mm-hmm.
last year, um, because that's when we got. I think I got the box set for Christmas or something, or
Mm-hmm.
my birthday. Yeah, so it had all four of them. And sometime last year we were just like, oh yeah, like let's do it. Like let's actually like go through and watch it. So we watched the first three, and then we were just after the third one, we're like, man, that was a little long. Like, let's wait. Like, let's give it like a day or so. And then of course, in true to form for us, we didn't do it the next day, and then we just didn't do it until literally this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um so the plan was to watch John Wick 4
Mm-hmm.
and then go back and watch all of them.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, then 4, and then we would be ready to go watch Ballerina on Tuesday.
Man.
Spoiler alert, we didn't end up doing most of that. We just watched John Wick 4.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. And yeah, I think like it's just one of those things where it's like me, I love movies.
Mhm.
Like if a hangout consists of us sitting down to watch a movie together, that's totally fine with me.
Mhm.
I'm good, I'm game. But it is just one of those things where it's like, man, that's my weekend right there. My weekend is just gonna be me sitting in front of the TV watching multiple, hour-long movies,
Yeah.
hours-long movies.
Yeah.
So which, if I'm in the right, mood for that, then yeah. But yeah, so we didn't do that. We watched John Wick 4. Kat really liked it. She thought it was really good. Uh she had a lot more positive things to say about it than I did. Because I was just like, yeah, that was a lot. That was intense. That was a lot. But I enjoyed it. And I think whenever I go back to watch it, I think I'm gonna find a lot more to like about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
what Sam talked to me about like off the pod was just how pacing issues. The action was great, but there was just so much of it. It was like a little maybe overkill is the word for it. Um,
Overkill. I think what was mostly overkill was just like it was kind of the same. There was no
mm,
diversity in
mhm,
what the action really was until
mhm,
like some set pieces, But then even within those like, they're in Paris and they have like the cool fight with all the cars running around. So like people keep getting hit by cars. I'm like, whoa, it's crazy. After you've seen like your fifth guy get hit by a car, I'm like, okay.
yeah, yeah,
Like it kind of lost it for me.
yeah. I can see what you're saying. Um, I can agree with you, but I still think it's one of the best action movies I've ever seen. I really think that we've talked about this a lot personally. I don't know about how much on the pod, but you kind of have to separate the first movie from the rest
Sure.
because you, a lot of people will say it's the best one, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of the same way people always say the first Iron Man is the best Marvel movie. It's like
Mm-hmm.
not really. Like at this point, it feels so different from the rest of Marvel. It's like
Yeah.
you know, and that's kind of to me the way John Wick is. Like it doesn't feel like a John Wick movie.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about all the stuff you really love about the franchise, there's a lot of it in the first one, but most of it is in the second one and onwards.
Yeah.
Um, and I really feel like the second one is really good. Uh, the third one, it's good, but I like what you just told me about your thoughts on part four. That's how I feel about the third one.
Mm.
I just feel like it's very repetitive. I don't really understand John's like because we're on a first name basis. I really don't understand his like his character arc or like motivation. I don't want to get into the whole like film critique side of it. Oh,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
what's the meaning behind this? It was very his story through that one is just very weird. And I feel like it's just kind of repeating stuff we've already seen in the first two. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
part four, I feel like it really took the best of the first three and kind of just mashed them together, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
But then like yeah, as far as the action sequences, I love Donnie Yen. He's a
Oh yeah.
beast. And of course, this is another movie where they had to ask him to slow down because he just moves too fast for the camera in real life.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to have a fight scene with Keanu Reeves. And Keanu Reeves is like no, like there's no way John Wick can believably hold his own against this guy. So
Mm-hmm.
he would just use guns. So they turned it into a gunfight instead.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I do wish the fight scene between him and I don't remember the character's name, but our boy Hiroyuki Sanada, good fight, just super quick. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
damn it, damn it. He was in Mortal Kombat. He can hold his own, like,
True, but
and
can he
I,
hold his own against Donnie Yen?
that's
I
true,
think is the
and
question.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. Um, but then I love I think the standouts were the the fight scene with the shotgun where it goes bird's eye view, and I'm just like, oh,
Oh yeah.
at this point, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm just
That
like
for
flailing around like a dying pigeon. I'm like, oh my god, you
that for
know,
me was like, yeah, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, oh my God. This is
yeah,
sustained one shot, going
hmm
into the bird's eye view, and John's just wailing on these dudes. It's like, here's
yeah,
the thing. He wields that shotgun with dragon's breath rounds
hmm
like he's a god dang surgeon.
dude, it felt like a video game, but in the best way possible. In a way,
Yeah.
video game movies haven't really been able to capture. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
god, uh, that and then the whole the I know the climax is the duel, but to me, like stunt wise, the climax is the staircase fight.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, talk about Man, mythic, you know. I mentioned this to you. I'm like, this is what Zack Snyder was trying to do with his Justice League universe. He was
Hmm.
trying to make these superheroes feel larger than life. And Zack Snyder, his style is to slow it down. Slow it
Hmm.
down so we could see the action and see the muscles and with all like the golden darkish, you know, camera filters. Whereas the John Wick movies are just like, nope, let's just go as fast as we can. And and you mentioned this too, which is a good point. They held the shots, you
Hmm.
know. Let us see what the fighters are doing. And when you do that, you actually see who's performing it. You actually
Yeah.
see Keanu Reeves fighting, you know,
Hmm.
and that just adds a whole new level of believability and just enjoyment to your movie when you're like, this guy is John Wick, you know.
Yeah.
Again, one of the best moments is the second one, the opening scene. It's the whole car where he's just running over dudes in his car.
Oh
Wait,
yeah,
is that the
yeah,
second one? Yeah, where he
yeah.
goes to get his car out,
Hmm.
and the door like flies off, and he drives out of the warehouse, and he no no he like, essentially drifts off a ramp midair out of the warehouse, and you can see that it's clearly Keanu, you know,
Hmm.
without the door there. And you know, there is CGI in these movies, but it's like when they can do it themselves, they do it themselves. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, man, yes. So yeah, John Wick, huh? Awesome.
Hmm. Hell
And
yeah.
what was your thoughts on Ballerina?
Now, now this is interesting. This is interesting because, and it sort of feels like, you know what? I think I'm going to be a lot more forgiving about my gripes with John Wick 4
Mm-hmm.
after having watched Ballerina,
Mm-hmm.
because so here's the thing, like I know you mentioned it off pod the other day, but like Chad Stahelski was talking about the Continental, the show,
Mm. Yeah.
and how, those guys, they thought that they had the magic and they didn't, you know?
Yeah.
And truly it is something to behold when it's like, I think like there is just something about it. It's like you can make a movie that says it's set in the same universe, that looks like it's set in the same universe, that has a lot of the characters that's set in the same universe, but there's something about having a different creative come in
Mm.
who doesn't fit into the same mold, and who
Yeah.
doesn't really get like the tone down. And honestly, that makes or breaks your movie.
Mm-hmm.
And for my money, I enjoyed Ballerina for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Anna de Armas is gorgeous. She's kicking ass. The fight scenes are all incredible. Um, which shouldn't surprise anybody, because most of those were shot by Chad Stahelski and the 8711 crew. It's like you can really put a lot of your faith into a really good stunt team, to have your back and to let you have your moments. Um, but yeah, man, I don't know. And I don't and I don't want to be too negative or too down about it, but it's especially because it's so new. But I will say that it's like we gotta we gotta write these things better.
Mm.
We gotta have a really good script, and
Yeah.
not just a really good script, but like there are moments where it feels like something's gonna be set up, and then, excuse me, almost like in a Marvel Netflix kind of way, we kind of undercut ourselves from what the threat is gonna be, or from what the, I guess, like who the antagonist like is gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like, yeah, I don't know. I can't get into too much without it being spoilery, but I'll say this, like I don't think I've seen a movie in a long, long time that has felt more like uh fan fiction.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like this that like so we already know that like this is supposed to take place within the events of like chapter 3, John Wick
Hmm.
chapter 3, Parabellum. Um and yeah, I don't know, it really pushes that like
Mm.
that concept and it really does feel like Anna Darmus's character is just my insert original character into popular franchise and oh yeah, of course she's gonna be this kind of person, this kind of badass. It's so strange, like she doesn't have a character.
Hmm.
Like we know one thing she wants and it's revenge.
Hmm.
Which you could kind of pass off and say that like, oh well, isn't that just John's motivation in the first
Hmm.
movie and kind of through the rest of the movies? And it's like, well, no, because it's a little more nuanced. He's already out. He has to dip back in to get vengeance.
Hmm.
He's got to continually sacrifice and we keep seeing things be taken away from him.
And let's not forget the key is that they take their time in the first movie.
Yeah.
Like they establish his grief over his wife's death. And
Yeah.
then we see him build the bond with the little puppy.
Mhm.
So it's like all in all, I don't know, 15 minutes, maybe. I don't think it goes full 20 minutes, but it's
Mhm.
done slowly and in a way with enough heart that you care about John,
Mhm.
especially when you think about John Wick. He's a character who's very little words, just mostly silent, and it's just like, wow. But you
Mhm.
really get who he is and you get on his side in those first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then that essentially sustains you through the whole franchise.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you get a little bit, here and there as it goes, but yeah.
Exactly. Whereas like
Wow.
here, uh Eve,
Hmm.
uh we already know what she wants.
Hmm.
And she literally spends the whole movie just kind of getting what she wants.
Hmm.
And for, like there's always a reverence to how Kat pointed this out. There's always a reverence to how characters uh establish the rules or are taught the rules or things like that. Like it feels almost knightly,
Hmm.
or regal in some sense of like, oh yeah, Winston's going to explain this rule that we had to make up for the movie,
Hmm.
that wasn't in the other one, but when
Yeah.
Winston tells you, it's like, oh yeah, great. Well, guess what? Winston's here and Winston gets to tell us about rules, but it doesn't feel the same.
Mm.
Like the reverence isn't there.
Yeah.
And also for a franchise that is completely built up by having characters, adhere to the rules or bend the rules or break the rules and then continually face the consequences.
Hmm.
Anna de Armas just kind of continues to like plow through all of the rules
Mm.
and kind of face no repercussion,
Hmm.
even when she should. And even when they tell you in the story, like, oh, this is the consequences of your actions, it's like, but then it doesn't mean anything
That's also
because,
tough because
you
that's
know,
John Wick's whole story,
yeah,
And it's like, well, how can we do that with another character?
yeah,
It's just like John Wick's supposed to be like the outlier. So,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Well, I'm gonna have to check it out. It's just it kind of perplexes me how they got Len Wiseman to direct this.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw shade. He might be a nice guy. I don't know.
Hmm.
But if you look at his filmography, there is nothing in that filmography that says give this man a John Wick movie.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff he's done is pretty iffy CGI stunts and a lot of wire work,
Hmm.
and it's just like there are fans of his movies, but I'm just like, and I mean, in fact, just looking at this, he has a lot more TV experience. And I'm just like, what was the thinking behind this? Like,
Yeah.
did someone drop out at the last minute? Like, I, I, I don't know, man. So is this going to be the last Well, no, we know Donnie Yen's character is getting a movie,
Yeah.
and they haven't confirmed the John Wick 5. They talked about it forever, and then they went into a period of saying, no, it's not going to happen after all. And now
Hmm.
I don't know where they're at with it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Like it's still on Chad Stahelski's like slate,
Hmm.
but I don't know how like official that is,
Yeah.
you know?
Wow.
So, I mean, we'll see. I'm still down. It's just kind of interesting like we've had two spin-offs of this franchise so far that, I know that kind of nobody saw the Continental.
Hmm.
And with Ballerina, it's sort of like, okay, I think it's doing well. I don't
Hmm.
think it's doing as well as it was hoped. It was
Yeah.
hoped for, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but again, like I feel like it's also kind of hard. Like this is just an original character who's being set up to be in the John Wick universe.
Yeah.
Donnie Yen has his fan base and is also a character in the franchise, so maybe there will be more success there.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. Who knows? Like I don't, and maybe this is just one of the things. Keanu Reeves is such an integral part of this franchise.
Hmm.
Maybe there shouldn't be a John Wick franchise without him,
Right. Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Going
So,
back to capturing the magic, like
yeah.
maybe he is part of that magic. And at least the director didn't even come into this ballerina,
Hmm.
So it's like, oh man, I don't know. Well, he did a lot of the reshoots and stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, let's get into it because we have a lot to talk about today.
Hmm.
So let's talk about last week. We did record an episode about Andor season
We
one,
we did?
episode 7. We did. Um, I didn't edit it because most of the episode was me. I don't know. I want to hear from your perspective, Sam. Did I lose my cool? Did I blow a gasket?
I well, here's the thing. I feel like I blew a gasket because I couldn't parse out what you were trying to say. And then every
Okay.
time I thought that I figured it out, you're like, "Well, yeah, but no, but this." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, what are we doing here, man?
Yeah.
What's
I
happening?"
got that too when I was in the edit. It took me so long to not really get my point across. But I ended up talking a lot more. I was a little, I think I was very critical on the episode and I didn't mean to be. I was really being more critical of all the crap going on in the world right now. And
Fair.
normally I would have just released the episode, but one, it wasn't fun, which it doesn't have to be. But two, it just wasn't a good discussion. So
Mm.
if you're not gonna get something out of it, I'm just not gonna post it. So that's why there was no episode last week. But all in all, I feel like these two episodes, it's not that a lot didn't happen, but I feel like a lot of similarities between the two. Um, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Uh, with the exception of like one major storyline, I feel like they kind of blended. Like this could have just been one super long episode, but I don't know. You want to lead us
Okay.
into this?
Sure. Okay. So we're breaking from tradition. So today we're talking about Andor season 1 episodes 7 and 8. Announcement and Narkina 5.
Hmm.
Announcement in which the repercussions of the Eldani heist reach across the galaxy, and Narkina 5, the Empire catches up to Cassian, but not in the way they think.
I feel like let's just do it by character.
Okay.
We'll talk about that. So where do you want to start?
Okay.
I say we do Andor last because I think his is kind of like the biggest to talk about.
Okay. Okay. Then let's see. Let's go with. Oh, I wish I had a dice. Ha. So, let's go with Luthen.
Okay. Um, what was his storyline in the last one? Now I'm thinking about it, like,
Oh my gosh.
well,
Well,
to be honest, he was kind of sidelined a lot in the last one. I think like the main thing that kind of stood out from that was that, what's his assistant,
Clea,
Clea. We find out that she's meeting with, I'm trying to remember their names.
Bell.
Vel, that's right. She meets up with Vel, the rebel girl, and it's kind of revealed that like Clea is more like hardcore rebellion. Like
Mm-hmm.
she basically tells Vel, like, we got to close the loose ends. You need to go kill Andor. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell? And she says something to the fact of like, Luthien, I don't remember the line, but she basically like he's losing his edge or something like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what we mentioned earlier, how he was a dreamer. She's
Mm-hmm.
like, we need to be more firm and all this stuff. So I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is interesting.
So she, so kind of mixing like two different kind of conversations because she tells Vel that we can't have Cassian walking around with Luthen in his head, meaning like
Mm,
not necessarily his like ideals, but mostly just him, his identity, what he looks like.
mm,
Like that in that way he's a loose end because it sort of seems like I mean, well, the entire rebel group that was recruited for Aldani, they're mostly dead, except
yeah,
for two and then Cassian.
yeah.
Um, and Luthen keeps admitting that he wasn't careful when recruiting Cassian.
Hmm.
So that is automatically a loose end, this kind of buggy sort of, mercenary,
Yeah.
just walking around there who knows the identity of a rebel faction.
Mhm.
But then the conversation that Clea has with Luthen is all about um is all about control and having
Mhm.
control in these situations. They lose track of Cassian. They, like even though there's now an emphasis of like, okay, we went loud, now we have to keep going. It was always going to be it was always going to come to us having to like worry about being discovered.
Mhm.
It's like, but we still have to be smart about these things. We can't just, be like, oh, hey, if
Right.
somebody has information, let's go talk to them immediately. It's like, no, we got to still be cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm thinking now, like, well, who else is she working with? Like, who's her? It's always seemed like he was the boss,
Mm,
and I think he even thinks he's the boss. But he probably respects her as an equal, just the way they talk to each other, and they're just brutally honest with each other, you know.
mm,
But I'm like, okay, who else is she working with? Like, that's what I'm curious, because she definitely
mm.
seems more, down for the cause in a more what's the word?
Kind of like cutthroat kind of way.
Yeah, yeah, in a more cutthroat kind of way. So I'm like, interesting.
Hmm.
And then so in episode 8, it was just kind of interesting to hear her telling Luthien that basically the same thing. Like, sloppy, we're gonna have to start cutting ties. They're cutting off Ferrex, and he kind of reveals through that conversation. What's that last line he says? It's not that I'm losing my edge or whatever, but he says it's that I've been hiding for too long. I was like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, there you go. Okay.
Hmm.
And then what happens? He goes to visits our good friend Saul Guerrera. I'm
Hmm.
like, oh man, okay. I knew he was coming. I just didn't know when.
Hmm.
So always good to see Forrest Whitaker. Um, and that was a really kind of eye-opening scene as well because it really shows that Luthien is the one trying to unite all these like like separate like rebellions,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they're just so hard-headed and it's like, guys, this if we lose this, it's over, game over. There's no coming
Hmm.
back, there's no going back into hiding. Like we have to win this. And it's only going to happen if we work together. And I like the way he him and Saul, like they're really on each other's level and I really like that. Um and when he says, well, I'm trying to figure out who are you, what do you have to gain and all this stuff, and he says, he's like, I'm the coward,
Hmm.
I'm the one who thinks that we're going to come out of this with absolutely nothing, unless we all work together. And I was like, oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, that's nuts. And I like how he's casually like he's bringing stuff to sell Saul and the cause,
Mm-hmm.
but you get it free if you go talk to this guy, kind of unite the tribes. But does he mention Star Path units?
I don't think he mentions Star Path unit.
Okay.
It's another kind of unit.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
but he has several, and I just kind of thought I was like, yeah, it never was about that Star Path unit. That was just kind of bonus. He was going after
Yeah.
Cassian, which we knew this. It's a nice little detail that they add into that conversation.
Yeah.
Like there is use for every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing
Mm-hmm.
with the money. I like they're talking about both in that scene and then in Mon Mothma's story, they're talking about money and how do we acquire it. When the Empire's literally has its thumb everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
including the banks. It's like, how do we move it? How do we use it? How do we explain it? And it's like, dude, this is perfect. Like, it's kind of like what you were saying. Like they seed so many things, you know, throughout these episodes. Like I knew they were going on a heist for like 3 episodes. They're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew what they were doing. But now to still, it's like now that that's over, they're still kind of hammering home the point of why that was so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's good. That's really
Yeah.
good writing.
Yeah.
Um, and it just kind of helps. And I think it helps connect those first 6 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
even though, we talked about how it's really tough. You have to kind of slog through the first two to wrap up the first three. You're like, okay. And then you kind
Yeah.
of do it the same way. And then it's kind of doing it the same way here. But this batch of three kind of feels different.
This
And
batch of three definitely does break the sort of mold that we're used to by this point.
I I I we'll talk about it, of course later, but I think it has to do with Cassian's story that really breaks the mold and kind of holds is holding my attention, I guess, more strongly than those
Mm-hmm.
first two trilogies, whatever you want to call them, those first three or those first two 3 episode arcs.
Yeah.
This one definitely feels different, and I'm kind of curious because you've kind of mentioned it that they don't always stick to the three. So I'm like, I wonder if this one's gonna break from it because I don't see some of these arcs being finished in the next episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of my predictions. Like this isn't a 3-parter like the first half of the season was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I just love the way they're planting all those little things, all these like little realistic things. Like, yeah, you can't have a rebellion without money. Where does that come from? It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, wow.
Mm-hmm. That
Yeah.
was that was one thing that I really liked about Luthen and Mon's conversation, like the day after the Aldani heist.
Yeah.
She goes and she's in a panic.
Hmm.
And the whole conversation is again like them not meeting each other on like what exactly they're doing, but and Luthen is coming at it from like this is what it was always going to be. Like it was always going to be about, this.
Hmm.
And Mon Mothma's coming at it from like, well, I thought that we were just we were still in the building blocks phase. I thought we were still building the network and all of that stuff. And then Luthen just very firmly is just like the network's up. It's
Yeah.
been built.
Yeah.
And then he kind of loses his wind a little bit and he's just like we need the money.
Yeah.
And like it truly does, like for all of the ideals, for all of the things that they're trying to do, it still comes down to this one factor that it's just like, yeah, it like as much as it is about the grander ideals, we need the money to fund all of that first to get
Yeah.
the ball rolling, which then plays into the rest of Mon's story of her
Yeah.
having trouble accessing funds, having to go through all of this sort of intrigue and espionage
Hmm.
just to get her money to where it needs to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talk about Clea being more cutthroat. but Luthien has that side of him too, and we didn't
Mm-hmm.
really realize that until like the last episode when Mon is calling him out. She's like, "So many people are going to suffer now
Mm-hmm.
because of this rebellion." And he's like, "Yes." He's like, "Good. That's what we need." And it's such like a terrible and heartbreaking thing, but it's just like, yeah, you need the people to get angry, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's uh, uh, picked a hell of a week to not edit an episode because a lot has happened this last week, and that's something we're
Yeah.
dealing with right now. Like I was saying earlier, it's wild how something so impactful is going on in our world right now, and most people are kind of just treating it as normal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think to one extent, there's the feeling of helplessness. It's like, well, what can I do? I'm gonna try not to think about it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then there's also the other side of it where it's just like, because we've always talked about you got to take care of yourself. Everything we're going through is a lot to carry. Um, but at the same time, it's like, man, this is it. Like, what's gonna happen in Los Angeles in these next 30 days is a good indicator of what's going to happen with our country for who knows how long. And unfortunately, what Luthen was saying is ringing in my ears right now. It's just like people need to get pissed. And I forgot who it was. I just read an article today saying that these historians who study fascism and stuff, they were saying that like you only need 3.5% of your population to rise up against you to take down your government. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, hey, give me those odds, man. Like, that's
Right?
awesome. Okay, and they were showing all the protests for No King's Day. And I'm like, dude, like I knew it was gonna be big, but like every day that map gets bigger and bigger of all the protests. And I was just like, man, just can't help but feel proud, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
like, we're gonna see what happens. And unfortunately, that's all we can do. So yeah, I feel like in the real world, this is where we are right now.
Mm.
Andor
Yeah.
season 1, episode 8. I was like, oh shit. But
Yeah.
yeah. Uh but that's Luthen stuff. And it was kind of nice to see him starting to break out of this character he's playing and back to like when we first saw him again, for the
Mm-hmm.
first time. I was like, all right, all right. Um, who else was there? Things aren't going good on Ferrex.
No, they are not.
Nope. They're abducting people and tying in with Luthen's story, Bix had to send out the coded message and stuff, and the
Mm-hmm.
guy even warned her, and that's pretty much what gave them away. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh crap.
That's something that I really love about the show, how it how am I trying to say this? In the episode that we didn't end up releasing,
Hmm.
uh you had mentioned how like, is this show like too smart? Is it too smart for people?
Mm-hmm.
And in my point of view, I kind of feel like, well, it might be, but I feel like it's treating its audience as like, if you're gonna watch this, we're gonna give you all of the pieces. We're gonna tell
Yeah.
you exactly what's gonna happen.
Right.
You just have to pay attention for when it comes into play later.
Hmm.
Because essentially what happens to Bix is what Clea is warning Vel about. She straight up
Mm.
says it's like, receiving messages is just as dangerous as sending them.
Yeah.
And that's 100% what happens to Bix.
Hmm.
She is trying to find cash. She's trying to get a message out. So she sends the signal, and that's what gets. And it's unfortunately, it's not even just Bix. Bix is the instigator, and then a side collateral. The main victim of this is the shop owner, Pack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's his shop, and that's where the signal was, and we don't know what the hell happened to him, but
Hmm.
he doesn't look great.
Yeah.
And now, unfortunately, we're kind of left to worry about Bix as well.
Yeah.
So
Damn.
Man.
But I did like that. I did like that we get back to Ferrex. We kind of see what's going on. The friend is back, which is nice. Um,
Brasso.
Brasso, his mom, man, she's not doing good. But it's crazy because like the way Brasso and Vix are talking about it, it's almost as if she's like this crazy senile old woman who thinks
Hmm.
she's part of the rebellion. But knowing the mom, it's just like, oh man, she's wondering like, are the tunnels underneath the hotel still open? Can the rebels go through there? So now I'm wondering like, is she actually senile, or
Hmm.
not? That's something that's always kind of I never really thought about that. If you have a rebel who lives to be that age and she starts losing it, like I don't know. I've always been knock on wood. I don't ever want to experience that myself, but I've always thought about that. Like people who start to kind of lose their minds in older age, like who do they become or who do they revert to? You
Yeah.
know, we hear stories all the time of people who they just completely check out and lose themselves. But then when you start playing music, it's like they're 50 years younger again.
Yeah.
And I've kind of wondered about that with like Dungeons and Dragons, uh, because you get into the characters and play these roles in a different way than you would approach something like as an actor, because you're kind of writing it on the spot.
Hmm.
And granted, we don't play that much Dungeons and Dragons, unfortunately. But if we did,
Yeah.
I had the thought, like, what if someone, maybe that's a movie idea, I'm giving it to the world for free. You're welcome. Someone starts to have dementia or starts to lose their mind when they get older, and they think that they're their D&D character,
Hmm.
you know, because that's one of the things we're going on side tangent, but that's one of the things, we talked about a long time ago when it comes
Hmm.
to the way your mind and your imagination works. The parts of your brain that are firing when you talk about when you play D&D, it's the same things that are firing when you're having memories, you
Yeah.
know. That's why when a lot of people, it's never about, oh, remember that time we were at your house eating pizza and we were playing D&D? It's like, no.
Hmm.
Remember that time we were fighting the orcs on the bridge? It's always like in the first person, because
Yeah.
that's kind of the way our brains remember it.
Hmm.
Kind of the same way where you never really relive the same memory. It's just like a
Yeah.
copy of a memory, a copy of a copy. It's kind
Yeah.
of the same principle, but at a certain point, you remember these fake or these fictitious events from a first person perspective, you
Hmm.
know? And
Well, I think like Brendan Lee Mulligan talked about that recently too, about how uh and it was just very briefly in some interview, but he was saying how like, oh yeah, like it was a thing where it's like trying to remember who was at the table. It's like, well,
oh,
actually, I don't remember who was at the table, but I remember their characters.
right, right.
So then it's like, oh yeah, like so it was this person and
Hmm.
this person and this person. And then at some point you either remember the player's name or you don't.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah.
but you still just vividly remember the character. And
Hmm.
it's like so it's interesting because it's like, yeah, it's exactly that. You are creating a memory of
Yeah.
something that technically didn't happen,
Hmm.
but your brain can't tell the difference.
Right, right. That's
Yeah,
wild.
that's
So in the
crazy.
case of like Cassian's mom, it's
Hmm.
like who knows? Like, is she actually going senile and like reverting into her younger rebellious ways, or is she of sound mind and body and she's
Hmm.
actually prepping, you know?
Hmm.
But she's also getting sick. She's physically sick at the same time. So it's like, oh,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
No.
yeah. It's one of it's one of those things where it's just like, like you can have the spirit and the fire within you,
Hmm.
but at what time does the rebellion come? It
Yeah.
hardly comes at a time when we're ready,
Hmm.
when we want it to.
Hmm.
Uh and yeah, so it's up to everybody to just kind of face it together, And that's kind of the thing too, where it's like I feel like everybody on Ferrex is still, even though they're mad and they're pissed and they have all these early warning systems and stuff, it's like they're still not united, you know, and
Mm,
it's just like Saul and the other rebel leaders. Like there's so many of them out there,
mm,
but they're not working together.
mm,
And it also kind of makes me laugh because that's that's the thesis of Deidre's uh whole plan and whole like theory about Axis and about the rebellion is that it is one single-minded, you know, organization that is able to branch out and doing all this stuff. And then you know, go further in and you look and you're like, no, everybody's pissed, but
mm-hmm,
everybody's doing their own thing. That's
mm-hmm.
why it looks so disorganized because it's
Yeah,
disorganized.
so she's saying that like it's too random to be random, and it's like,
Mhm. No.
no, it's pretty random,
Yeah.
but
It,
to a certain level,
it's like
yeah.
sometimes a painting of a pipe is literally just a painting of a pipe.
So speaking of Deidre,
Hmm.
her kind of story for these past two episodes was essentially hard work pays off.
True.
She got the sector, the I forgot what the sector is called, from the jerk. She's now
Hmm.
in charge. And however, her storyline does briefly take a detour and intersects with Cyril.
Hmm.
That was a nice reveal. I was like, oh, when she walks into the room, I was like, oh, okay. So Cyril basically took a desk job. You know, he's kind of got no choice at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and apparently we find out he's been lodging like all these like reports against Andor.
Hmm.
And like it was flagged, and Deidre finds it, and now she's kind of interrogating him about what happened. And uh essentially nothing happens really,
Yeah.
you know. And I had this thought after the last episode where he gets stuck with the desk job, because it the episode ends very oddly, and it ends on him kind of
Hmm.
stuck behind the desk. And I was like, what? That's weird. But then I was kind of thinking like, well, what's the meaning of that? You have all this other stuff. You kind of have like a big cliffhanger with Cassian. Why
Hmm.
do they end it on Cyril? And I'm thinking I now have a new prediction on Cyril. Because
Okay.
before I was like, man, his story is like perfectly parallel to Andor. And like, is Cyril gonna become like this big bad, you know, this
Hmm.
Empire guy? And now I'm thinking like, no, what if his story is just mediocrity? You know?
Oh,
He's
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
he as much as he's trying, like he's not good enough to become that empire leader. That's kind of like Deidre's role or whatever, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, what if you have the story of this kind of outcast becomes outlaw who eventually is going to become rebel leader, and then you have Cyril, someone who's just so loyal to the empire, but the very thing that he's loyal to and loves just keeps oppressing him and holding him down, and he just keeps taking it, and
Hmm.
like he ends up nobody, you know,
Yeah.
just another drone. And I'm like, that would be interesting, that would be kind of cool,
Hmm.
because he has the drive, but he doesn't have the opportunities, and when he does take those opportunities that he has, it's just Empire just kind of like fly swats him away.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
huh, that's interesting.
I do like that theory.
I I
That's a really good
really
one.
I really like his character and his storyline. Again,
Hmm.
he's obviously a bad guy, you know, the villain you love to hate type
Hmm.
thing. Like I would like to play this character. Uh but this actor who's playing him is doing a phenomenal job, just very awkward and almost quirky in a way, but then like it's like he flips a switch, and like the empire comes out of him, you know. And
Hmm.
it happens when he's talking to the sergeant in those first three episodes, and it happens last episode when he's given the job and he starts telling the guy, he's like, I need to clear my name. He's like, two employees were killed and blah 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 blah, it's not right, and all this stuff. You actually
Hmm.
see the fire start to come out of him, you
Hmm.
know, whereas he's normally just so reserved. I'm like, oh wow,
Hmm.
especially compared to like the speech he gives. in episode 2 or 3, and it's just very like I felt like he
Like
was
we're
reading the
gonna
cat
go get
posters.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, in the Empire cafeteria.
Hang
Follow
in
your
there.
dreams. What's that line from 500 Days of Summer? He's like, "It's a lie. Look at that. Look at that poster. If Fluffy follows his dreams or whatever, he's dead. He's a dead cat." Oh man.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see where his story goes. We'll see.
Mhm.
I'm probably totally off, but I already said big bad, and now I'm saying absolute nobody. So I feel like
Yeah.
there's a spectrum. Either way, I'm going to be right.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And and that's good going to have.
mhm,
Like that, and that's kind of the thing too with these imperial, fascist,
mhm.
machines and governments and stuff. It's like they are more than willing to use their own people just as a means to an end
Yeah.
and, all this stuff. So, really briefly, I wanted to say one thing since we kind of touched on it with Cyril. I was scrolling through Tumblr today and I saw a post of somebody saying like, "Oh, like I finally broke down and started watching Andor." And I only read that first half of their post and I liked it.
Mhm.
And then I was like, "Well, wait a second.
Gotta
What did they
double
actually
check.
say?" Yeah, like let me double check. Let me go make sure that I agree with what they're saying.
Cite your
Uh,
sources, Sam.
exactly. So the full thing was like I finally broke down and started watching Andor, and then they said it just feels so weird that the Empire would care this much about about the death of two like corporate security officers.
Mm,
And then I'm scrolling through the comments, and there's not that many. There's only like three or four,
mhm.
and everybody's kind of agreeing and kind of being like, well, like it's a justification for them to do all this other stuff, blah 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 blah. But I'm still stuck on like you you think the Empire cares about these people?
Mm-mm.
You're not watching the show. They
Mhm.
blatantly tell you that they don't care about these guys. Cyril himself, it's taken him 7 episodes, 8 episodes, I'm sorry, to get to the point where it's like, this is beyond the death of two cops.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much more going on, and the Empire doesn't care. They didn't care
Mhm.
about Morlana 1 because there were no stormtroopers there. They left it in the hands of these guys.
Mhm.
They didn't care that these two guys were killed until it became a shit show.
Mhm.
And then they had to come in and sweep up everything and all that. So it's like, pay attention when you're watching stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Exactly.
the problem you have with the show is literally answered by the show. They don't care. And that's kind of the thing that the Empire continues to push in this series.
Mhm.
And it's kind of the thing that stuck on me watching these latest 2 episodes where it's like you have all these people in this room creating these decisions or being told these are the decisions that are being made. I'm speaking to Emperor Palpatine and we're doing this. We're doing all of
Mhm.
these things. And it's like it's 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 an interesting thing to watch because it's people in a room who are part of an organization who maybe potentially all freaking hate each other.
Mhm.
Blevin is over here saying like because of the new, unrestricted access we're getting, Deidre's able to supplant me and get all this information without a request. And like
Mhm.
that doesn't matter, dude. Like you should be preoccupied with keeping order, quote unquote,
Mhm.
keeping the status quo, whatever. But no, you care about your position.
It's all ego, man.
It's all ego. And yeah, like even, you know, uh
And that's
uh
what I liked. Like
yeah.
the head guy, he was saying the last episode, he's like, "I'm giving it to Deidre. It's no longer your distraction." It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like he was just distracted by it. He wasn't seeing that his job, the most important job
Mhm.
to the Empire, was right in front of him. It was in his hands.
Yeah.
You know.
And even how he reprimands him where, that guy is saying that like imagine if we all just played as fast and loose with the rules as you.
Mhm.
And then Partagas is just like, now that is interesting. I wonder how everything would be if people
Mhm.
had the forward thinking that Deidre had, and everyone's like, oh,
Mhm.
oh. It's like, yeah, like if everybody did kind of do this, if everybody did have the gumption and have the, have the determination, you guys would have stopped the rebels by now.
And I like how he speaks up for Deidre in this episode. You
Yes.
know, he's like, I'm also of the mind. She brought this to me, and I'm also in agreement with her, and blah blah blah. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what pushes it over to get for her to get what she wants. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I like this guy. Like, it's crazy because like I'm loving the villains of this show. Like, not just not. I, man, I feel dirty saying it.
Oh
Not just
gosh.
in a I love to hate them kind of way, but they're legitimately good characters. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wow, there's a little bit of humanity in him.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's so easy just to write bad guys, to write evil guys. And we see it all the
Oh
time throughout the
sure.
show. Just the red shirts, the stormtroopers, they're all dicks, you know?
Yeah.
So it is interesting to have like the villains who are leading your show are legit people who have different sides to them. And it's just there's little things to connect with them. I think Deidre is a very relatable character to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Same thing with Cyril, uh, uh, who I think both of them are on the spectrum. It's somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we all are. Maybe that's why we're relating to them.
I think we are.
That's the big conspiracy behind Winnie the Pooh.
That he's on the spectrum? He's
all
autistic?
all of the characters on 100 Acre Wood are different autism.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
Yeah, they're
100% I'd
they're all
buy that.
different part of like Christopher Robin's psyche. I was like, oh,
Yeah, for sure.
interesting.
Yeah, totally. I can see
Yeah.
that.
All right, Tony Gilroy. He's doing the Winnie the Pooh series in the style of Andor.
100 acres.
We'll just call it
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
the 100.
No,
No,
that's already
taken.
taken.
Okay, we'll call it 100.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There you go.
Gotcha.
That's
Gotcha.
different.
Yeah, that's completely different. Two
We'll
different
call it
shows entirely.
Wood.
Wood.
No, they'll call it either just Pooh or Winnie, Mr. Saunders.
Dun-dun-dun. A sunrise over a honey tree.
Uh,
Dun-dun.
oh man. All right. So speaking
I love
of
it.
Andor, let's talk about Andor.
Let's
Well, we still
go.
have a little bit of time left. Um, Loved it. Last episode he was running. Uh, he tried to get his mom to run with him, and she has the whole talk. She's like, no. She's like, I can't go with you, and if you go, I'm not gonna judge you. She's like, but
Hmm.
my fight is here, and I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
damn, dude. Um, but it is interesting to hear her perspective and Bix's perspective of saying basically how everyone like hates him now because like they blame it on him,
Yeah.
which is yeah true. I mean, he gets two cops killed, or he kills two cops, and then he runs home to hide, and it's like, oh, I get it. Like he was trying to he ran home as like a waypoint to get away, but it's like
Hmm.
still, dude, you brought it to your front door, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, like I feel like last episode, Cassian. Well, I was gonna say he was his sideline. He really wasn't, but I felt like his story had the. Well, no, now I'm thinking about it. It was pretty damn good, and a lot of things happened. It
It
just
was
kind
just
of,
sort of like the least amount of things to do where it's like he's coming home and
yeah,
we're just talking, like he's trying to
yeah,
convince Marva, he's checking up on Bix, settling scores, and then he leaves
yeah,
and then he ends up on the beach. So it's
yeah,
like it really is like in like still interesting stuff, but there's all these other moving pieces now around him.
yeah. It was easily like the least exciting
Yeah, yeah,
parts,
yeah.
especially a show when just everyone's talking. Uh,
Hmm.
his storyline through the last episode was the least exciting,
Yeah, yeah,
until
yeah.
he gets to the beach planet with
Mm-hmm.
the rad ass music, and I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
beach episode. And then he gets detained and arrested just
Yep.
for looking suspicious.
Yep.
I was like, dude, that sucks.
Yep.
That sucks.
Yep.
Like,
Again, how fortuitous that we're watching this now.
right,
It's
exactly.
like literally just by the way you look,
Yeah.
you can just be detained.
Yeah.
And
And even on top of
yeah.
that, like he was looking suspicious. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, the stormtrooper, the cop, was just a dick. He was just
Yeah.
looking for a reason to take him out, I'm like, oh, dude. But we did get the robots, the
Mm-hmm.
I don't K2SO robots.
So this
Um,
the I did read some trivia. This is an earlier design, but it's essentially the same unit. I think
okay.
it's like a KX or something.
Okay.
But yeah, this is
Big, scary, intimidating.
how yeah, big and intimidating. How crazy this is Cassian's first introduction to that droid.
Dude, and the shot where he's what like he walks up the stairs with the ocean
Mhm.
behind him, you just see the head pop up, like, oh my god. And he's carrying two dudes. I'm like,
Two
damn
dudes.
it. Damn it. Now his voice, it wasn't Alan Tudyk, was it?
No, no.
Okay.
It was just like a very deep, like robotic voice, like
Yeah.
hang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But the really big stuff I wanted to talk about with Cassian happened episode 8, where he goes to
Yep.
jail, he goes to prison. I'm like,
Yep.
dude, oh my God. Just the whole the process. One of the things I mentioned in the last episode, which I canceled, was me talking about how I had to explain to Sam how, as a a fan and student of cultural anthropology, I love prison. Knock on
Oh,
wood.
I
I love
forgot
prison
about this
shows.
conversation.
I'm
Yeah.
just so fascinated by learning about people's cultures, and prison is in itself a culture. It's a place where the rules inside are made for a certain reason, and they don't pertain to anyone outside of it. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, what is it? And we see it. We see the lead up of where they're separating them into the different ships. We see the journey on the ship to the planet. What's it called? The
Narkina 5.
Narkina 5. And we see this ominous prison hole in
Hmm.
the ocean, the water. Like, oh my
Oh, we
god.
don't just see one of them.
Oh, there's several.
We see 7.
7. Oh my god.
Uh-huh.
Oh, which is like a special number, I guess, because
It's
there's also 7 floors.
there's 7 floors, there's 7 work rooms on
Yeah.
every floor. There's
7
7
tables.
tables in every workroom and 7 men at every table.
I wonder what the significance of that is.
I like truly I don't know. I don't know if they ever go into it.
Uh-huh.
For me, I felt like it was just like, I guess not
It
necessarily
seems
like
like a fascist number.
yeah, yeah. Which
I don't
sucks because
know.
it's my favorite number.
It was
um,
my favorite number to the longest time.
yeah.
Now it's 4.
4. Oh, interesting.
Speaking of which, we're 44 days away from the Fantastic Four movie.
Hey,
Hmm.
that should be a post somewhere.
They did. They posted it.
Fantastic Four. Oh, okay.
That's how I know.
Oh, cool.
But the prison stuff, I loved it. I was like, oh wow, the freaking electric floor. I guess it's electric, but it hurts.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
oh man,
It's so strange because it's like electric, but also sort of like magnetic, but like bodily magnetic. So like it's literally like pulling you down to the
yeah,
floor while also electrocuting you.
yeah.
Uh yeah, and the fact that we only saw it one time and it was at level 1, the lowest setting.
And it
Like
was pretty like
it
vicious
sucked.
looking. I was like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
man.
Um yeah, no, I'm just like and it's such a like it's so scary. It's so scary how like okay, like that obviously is very scary. The
Mhm.
moment that gave me a sinking feeling And again, like this is like the third time I'm watching the show, but the moment that gave me a sinking feeling was on the prison transport where the guard is literally telling them, kick off your shoes.
Mm,
Like, how many images have we seen
mm-hmm,
of all the concentration camps where,
mm-hmm.
it's just their shoes, the prisoner's shoes outside
Yeah.
of the camp and in piles, like mounds, like a hill's worth of shoes.
Mm-hmm,
And like that's horrifying and it's a gut punch and it sucks. And so like including like stuff like that in here, again, props to the writers and the production team and everything, because just it's such a quick moment, but it immediately puts you in like they've already begun to dehumanize these people.
mm-hmm,
They don't see them as beings, they are numbers
mm-hmm,
and they are cogs. And for me, I feel like that's probably what the seven symbolizes. It's just like you're just a cog. You
mm-hmm,
fit in place. They even said that like there's only one reason why the guards come. It's to take the dead and to bring their replacement.
mm-hmm.
And it's like that's all Cassian is. That's all any of
Yeah.
these people are. They're just cogs doing what looks like busy work. Like I don't know what they're building, but for all we know, it could be nothing,
Mm.
you know?
No, it's something. They're building
Yeah.
AT-ATs or something.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
Um,
yeah, like because it's the Empire, like, yeah, of course they're gonna like,
yeah.
slave labor their,
No.
their workforce, but
Um,
but yeah, who knows?
it was the that whole thing, the whole prison stuff was just terrifying. But to me, the scariest part was after the guy kills himself and how just like back to
Hmm.
normal everyone just got. I was like, oh damn,
Hmm.
dude. And you're kind of just stuck with Cassie in there, like kind
Hmm.
of bug-eyed. I was like, dude. Uh, I completely forgot Andy Serkis is in the show. He
Yeah.
plays like the head of that room.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, what a badass man.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah. I don't know. I'm hoping there's a prison break. I I don't know. Like this, again, I've pretty much stayed away from a lot of Andor stuff just because I never watched it.
Hmm.
Um, I knew at some point they end up in prison because I've
Yeah.
seen pictures of them in outfits and Andy Circus and stuff. But so now I'm assuming there's going to be a prison break because Cassian, he can't stay 6 years in there. Rogue One is in 5,
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, how are they going to get out? Because as much as I love prison breaks even more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
That's
like,
what I'm about for sure.
yeah, I was like,
I'm
hell
about the prison
yeah.
breaks. Yeah. Hey man, we'll see. There's still, even though there's only 4 more episodes to go for the season, we
Oh,
still have plenty more to get through.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I'll say here, it's like we are like these next 4 episodes, no slouch. We're in it.
It's good to hear.
We're
Good to
freaking
hear.
in it, man.
All right, well, tell me about next episode.
I'm sure everything you're looking for will happen in next episode where we talk about Andor season 1, episode 9. Nobody's listening.
Mm.
In which, under intense scrutiny while in prison, Cassian makes alliances to plan him.
To what?
To plan.
Oh, perfect. So that scene where they're like just, I guess, walking back to their bunks or whatever, and they're all in line, and the guy's kind of doing sign language, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
Cassian looks across, and there's someone else in the other tunnel doing it, and he starts
Hmm.
looking at all the other tunnels. First thing I'm thinking, like, ooh, good, because we're gonna need as many people fighting back as we can get. Like, oh man,
Yeah. But it's like that's not who Cassian is.
I know.
Like
Yeah.
he's not a fighter, It's
Hmm.
what and real quick, like I wanted to bring back that idea, we talked about like uh Bix, like they introduce something in another conversation completely separate that ends up affecting another character.
Hmm.
Cassian like Cassian is affected by that first scene in episode 7 with the ISB, where that like guy over Partagast is essentially saying like these are the new directives. all of these things are happening, and essentially laying out any sort of rebel activity is
Hmm.
going to be punished to the max,
Hmm.
to the extreme. Even, minor infractions are going to be all this stuff. And that's what gets Cassian, you
Yeah.
know? Like and there were other charges that were thrown on it, let's be
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
But yeah, his initial sentence would have been 6 months. Now it's
Yeah.
6 years.
And then the guys already in prison, they're saying that one day all their sentences just got doubled.
Hmm.
And it's
Which is
like,
what that guy said. It's like all
yeah.
sentences are reevaluated.
Yeah. I was like,
Uh,
oh, damn it.
but then it's crazy too how like all of these things are happening. Mon is trying to like garner votes to combat these directives
Hmm.
in the Senate, and they're having conversations about it. But then Cassian, this is the thing, we I know that we all love Cassian because
Hmm.
we know where he ends up.
Hmm.
It's so interesting to have a show where you have your lead character, you already know their destination. Now you're on the journey with them,
Hmm.
and Cassian kind of sucks. Like
Yeah.
truly, like
Yeah.
those first three episodes, like it's literally, it's like we said, like Cassian had a bad day and he's making it everybody else's problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what is happening here, but it's more like in the broad stroke, it feels like Cassian has a lot of chips on his shoulder, and I feel like maybe this is like an oversimplification or something, but it's like he's not taking accountability for his own BS.
Hmm.
Like it's always something else.
Hmm. Hmm.
And his conversations with Marva, it's just like we can go somewhere in the galaxy they haven't ruined yet. And Marva's already past that point where it's just like this is everywhere.
Hmm.
Ferrix is nowhere.
Hmm.
If it's here, it's everywhere.
Hmm.
I even love that, when he's on Narkina 5 walking through the beach, he sees the security droids like going through. There's no other like in this
Or
one little
Narkina Five's the
area.
prison place.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
On Neomos, the
Hmm.
beach planet, the
Hmm.
tourist world. There's no other guards or stormtroopers. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
sand troopers on the beach, but there's the security droids flying overhead. It's
Yeah.
like this is already everywhere, dude.
Hmm.
How can you not get that? And then by
Yeah.
virtue of Cassian just not wanting to be involved, being either playing ignorant or actually being ignorant, he goes into the prison and they're all just like, "What do you know about this?" And he's like,
I don't
"I
know.
don't know anything." And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, that's crazy. It's like you can live your whole life not knowing things or just being ignorant, like
Hmm.
being on your phone and choosing to post as if everything's normal,
Yeah. Yeah.
choosing to say that it's not our fight, and these things are still going to come after you. At
Hmm.
some point, it's going to be you that gets taken away.
I'm not a big fan of The Rock, especially in the Fast and Furious movies. But
Sure.
one of his lines was something to the fact of like, if you think this isn't gonna reach your mama's porch, you're wrong. Something like that. It's something
That's
dumb like
it.
that. Yeah. But I'm like, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, like
It's true,
we gotta stop this now.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah. But I liked all the Mon Mothma stuff and the parties and how they're having all the conversations we're having now. It's like, oh, well, I
Hmm.
think it's gonna be for our protection and all this stuff. But don't you think it's too much? And I'm like, oh man.
Hmm.
Oh man.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah. Wow. Too real. Too real. We knew getting into the show that there was gonna be a lot of I knew it
A
was
lot of
gonna be
overlap,
a lot
and
of
a lot.
overlap. I knew it was gonna be a little triggering. Um yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Keep
yeah,
your head up, man.
yeah, yeah,
you
exactly.
know,
Um
any MVPs or anything?
uh no, just the whole thing, man. I just absolutely I'm enjoying all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess that's it. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for chatting or listening to us chat. Again, sorry about no episode last week, but we'll have one next week. Again, talking about that ninth episode of Andor. Share your predictions with us. Share your thoughts. Please, no spoilers. You can find us on every single platform except for Twitter, and you just use the hashtag Lost Legacies. We will find it. Yeah, let us know how you're enjoying the show so far. And as always, you can find me on Instagram, Threads, and BluSky at Real. It's REEL Texas Weirdo.
And I'm on Instagram and Threads at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch and BluSky at Matthew Jimenez.
All right, everyone. Till next time.
Get lost.
Get lost.